Magnus.
Hey, Frederik.
Welcome back to the engine room, where we once again have flipped the script. So now I'll be interviewing you.
Yes.
And today we'll be talking about something you have brought up, I think, in every episode you've hosted on the engine room.
Oh.
And that's the revenue analytics.
Oh.
I think you brought it up every episode.
Okay.
And now I think it's time that we give the audience what they've been craving, what they've been yearning for. What is it? How do you do it? Let's get into the nitty-gritty details.
Of revenue analytics.
Yeah. So what is it?
What is revenue analytics? Okay. Well, revenue analytics in its simplicity, because it could be complex, it could also be simple, is basically understanding where your deals are coming from, how your deals are progressing, and potential pitfalls in deal progression cycles. But really, you want to understand what goes into a deal that gets created to a deal closed won. And where is it that you close the most deals? Where is it you close the least? Where is it you see the fastest deal cycles? Where is it you see the shortest? That's the same thing. Where is it you see the longest deal cycles? And using that data to direct not only your marketing, but also your sales activities. So it's the fundamental aspect of everything revenue,
Yes.
and many companies do not have any revenue analytics whatsoever.
Okay, so who needs to do this?
Everyone.
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 Who owns it in the company? Who do you think should own it in the company?
Very good question. So going back to who is it for? In another episode, we talked about what I would do as a first marketing hire in a smaller B2B company, SaaS. And I said among those things, like here we had like 15 deals in that scenario, right? And the revenue analytics person would come in as like the third or fourth hire. So even if you're a small company or if you're a large company, either way you need revenue analytics. Obviously, if you have 5 deals, it's not going to be that complicated. But let's say you have 50 deals, right? Mm-hmm. Now you have, to some extent, statistical data you can use to figure out where are you making the most money and how efficient are you. So all companies can use it. You need to have a somewhat ample sample size. But I think even for the more small-scale companies, you can, and I know mathematicians here and like statistical people will probably absolutely annihilate me for saying that, it's not a good sample size. Take it with a grain of salt. Like, obviously, it's not going to be 10 deals is not enough. Can it give you some indication of where things are headed? Sure. Is it enough to base your strategies on? No. So that's my answer.
You don't think so?
I think to some extent it might be. Again, there's going to be anecdotal sort of experience evidence from my side, which is that, yes, it is going to be enough to direct you to some extent. Are we just looking at numbers? No. Are we going into, in the other episode, I talked about MedPick, right? Capturing these details in the early discovery and qualification calls of understanding pain points. If we can not only do it based on numbers, right, but also do revenue analytics on, for example, let's say we do the MedPick scenario. We have like the pain points. We have the economic buyer. We have these things. So the revenue analytics is deals with XYZ in these industries with these titles as economic buyers move at X rate faster through the deal cycle, then absolutely yes. But if we're just looking at like industry and potentially the purchase or the person who has requested the call, the champion, then I think you can capture more data. Yeah.
All right. But who should own it? Like, who initiates this?
Oh yeah, that was your question.
That was the question, yeah.
Who should own it? Typically, what I've seen is it's typically marketing, right? And in my experience, it's typically me who comes with it to the table. And I bring it to the table because I do not like inefficient processes and I do not like leaky funnels, right? And I especially do not like spending money, my budget, on campaigns or, let's say, sales initiatives and whatnot, where I do not believe we can prove or have some foundational understanding that it will generate pipeline. Obviously, we also talked about strategic bets. And I think having a strategic bet based on revenue analytics is the best case scenario for basically every company that either wants to start a marketing engine or already has started a marketing engine and maybe enough data points to make it bulletproof, right? Who owns it then? Typically, the person who needs it the most, i.e. marketing. Sales are busy with their deals. C-suite wants visibility, but maybe does not fully understand how to get there. Marketing person has to defend their existence, so i.e. marketing person will run it. Now, that's wrong. It should actually be an operations person, and in this case, not just the operations person, as I almost said, operations person.
That was quite nice.
Not just the HubSpot person, right? You said ideally a HubSpot person also has some capability of running revenue analytics. I don't always believe that's the case. If you have that capability, good. Maybe you can do that. But otherwise, I think you're looking at a dedicated revenue ops person because it is a big job, especially if you decide to build it in-house in a data warehouse.
It takes, you said, not necessarily that an ops person can do it. That's because it takes two different sets of skills in order to do this, right?
Yeah.
There's the strategic chops where you have to understand what to look for.
Yeah.
And then there's the technical chops.
Yeah.
That's like setting up the report and like flipping the data on the right parameters and the right dimensions, right?
Yeah. It's not the same person though.
No.
So again, anecdotally, strategic is either a marketing person or a chief revenue person, something, head of revenue, whatever you want to call it. So it's either the marketing lead or sort of the umbrella revenue lead, right? It's very rarely the salespeople. That would be the strategic thing because we gotta illuminate the funnel. We gotta figure out how do we become better at driving revenue. That's the strategic. Actually setting it up, that's a specialist work. Because even if you have the best of intentions as a strategic person, you're not necessarily capable of doing the specialist work. And the specialist is so busy with the technicalities of setting it up that you cannot expect that person to also be a strategic thinker. They're not running their campaigns. They're not focused on revenue, right? So two people.
Yes, I very much agree. When should you do this?
As soon as possible.
Okay, let me rephrase. How often do I need to do this?
Oh, how often? So I think, again, here, it really depends. Are you running it out of an Excel sheet? Or are you doing it because you have, again, going back to the last episode we filmed where we talked a lot about fundamentals, talked about HubSpot hygiene. If you have set HubSpot up in a way where you capture what we would deem important data points in the deal cycle throughout the stages, then you are basically set up for automated revenue reporting. However, that's revenue reporting where we look at industry, we look at economic buyer, we look at pain points if that's something you've mapped. We look at what does it take for a deal to move fast, what makes a deal move slow, and how many, for example, people are in that buying committee. All of those things are normal revenue analytics, right? If we talk attribution, then you cannot rely on HubSpot because HubSpot is basically black or white attribution in the sense that it looks at either original source or latest source.
Unless you have the big one, right? Unless you have the enterprise hub, then you can do a little bit more.
You could do a little bit more, but most people don't have. Most companies don't have that,
Most
right?
don't.
And in that case, where you're then thinking about, I can't remember the exact quote. I know Hockey Stack or Dream Data did some research on how much of the journey comes before that HubSpot form submission.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know, it's definitely above 50%. Maybe it's even up at 70%.
I also remember it being
high
in the 70, close to 80%.
Something like that.
Before the initial sales touch.
Yeah. So when we then think about revenue analytics, right? And we say, okay, what we just spoke about so far is what happens after the contact is in HubSpot. And we're talking from a marketing perspective. So after the person has submitted a form and they have given consent to have their data basically in there, right? That's the revenue analytics we've talked about so far. That means what happens when the form submission hits and then the data that we have from sales prospecting or qualifying that ICP or that prospect, whatever it is, what happens then? What we haven't talked about so far when it comes to revenue analytics is everything that comes before it. Yeah. So basically, how do you get more of this is all that is here.
But I think that's also maybe outside of the scope of what this episode is going to cover. So now we have established like who does it, why do you need to do it, when do you need to do it, how often do you need to do it, all that stuff. What's the objective? Like, what do I expect to get out of it? We have that sort. Now we need to get into how do I actually do it, and I want you to go on the lowest resolution level as possible. So you tell me, what deals do I look at? What metrics do I look at? What dimensions do I look at? As granular as you can possibly go without having a screen to show everything on.
Okay, let's think about it then. So we are interested in, ultimate goal here is how do we drive more revenue?
Yes.
Right, that's the ultimate goal. So we have, let's say we have 5 deals, to make it simple. We have 5 deals that we want to analyze, and we are capturing, obviously, first name, last name, all of those things. We're also capturing pain points. We're capturing industries. We're capturing seniority, and we have these sort of things, right?
Capturing size,
company size, revenue, geography,
growth rates, revenue, industry, all that stuff.
Some of it can be automated, enriched. Some of it is also just a manual input, and that's fine. But either way, what you're then looking at is, and let's say all of these 5 deals are close to 1, right? All of them are close to 1. Let's say
do they have to be?
No.
Okay.
No, they absolutely do not. Okay. But in this case, let's say all 5 are close to 1. And you can say, cool, I'm a happy camper. We have revenue X5. What we want to figure out, and that is why do we even want to do revenue analytics, is you can have different sort of entryways into this, right? The scenario I'm talking about now is how do we generate more revenue? We're happy with what we have. How do we get more? That's one scenario. There's also a scenario of we're not getting enough. That's typically where most people are. How do we get more? And then there's we're definitely getting enough inbounds, but it's not converting to closed won or to op stages, later stages in the deal cycles. Why is it not converting, right? There's definitely 3 scenarios. Over here, then, what you're looking at is when it comes to how do we have even more revenue. You're looking at what are the outliers here? Like, is there any statistical significance? I know it's just 5 deals, where we can say that if buying committee is plus 3 people, we have engaged plus 3 stakeholders. We have showcased maybe a product demo in the first call rather than the second call. I know this is a lot of the sales processes, but that's also part of it. Those are the sales processes things, right? From a marketing perspective, what we're looking after is what is the overlap in terms of industries? What is the overlap in terms of functions or titles, seniority? What is the overlap potentially, if you can track so far, in content that has been showcased or content that has shown significant relevancy in those initial first deal stages, right? That's sort of over here. If we're we're not generating enough, and let's then say we have 10 deals is a little difficult, or 5 deals is a little difficult to start deciphering how do we get, like we don't have enough, how do we get more? But maybe it could work the same way. So we have 5 deals, and then it's still sort of the same thing. Like there's the marketing side of it, which is the targeting side of it, and the content side of it. Who are they, and what is the overlap significantly, and what content may have been shown to them that made them shortlist our company. If we can decipher those things and we have an ample sample size, we can then start saying, okay, we have to always target. So let's say we have the CFO, we have the CSO, and we have the CEO in the buying committee, right? We need to sign off on all of them. Right now, we're only targeting the champion, which maybe would be the CFO, right? So even though the CFO usually has buying power and whatnot. So we're only targeting the champion, but we do know that, well, we have more people in the buying committee and they're stakeholders, and maybe they're the blockers, right? So how do we get those on board so that sales can become order takers? Right now, we're not targeting them. There is statistical significance in our revenue analytics that says that if we do engage them in the buying cycle, there's a higher percentage chance of winning a deal. So what if we market to them prior to a deal cycle? Can we then even bump it up further? That is a strategic bet.
All right. There's a lot to unpack here, and we're a little strapped for time for this episode. Okay, so take me back. So I'm I'm taking all of my closed won deals ever, or in a period, or I'm looking at a cohort of closed won deals, and then I'm trying to figure out what are the similarities between these, and then I'm basically using it to guide my go-to-market strategies. What you're saying, so not just marketing but also sales, and then you're going very granular and saying I could look at what content have been showed. Is there a difference between the close rates or like the deal cycles based on number of stakeholders that I'm engaging with? If my sales team is just single threading or multi-threading, if I'm showing them, I know Dream Data has some cool data on that, but like also if they had the first touch on a review side, then there's differences.
Yes.
So that's some of the stuff that you're looking at there.
Yeah, and I think again, data can be data just for data's sake, and in that case, we're nowhere. So you got to have a purpose, right? And that's also what I said with there's like these three main pillars, how I would typically use it. And there's an ultimate outcome for each of those sort of scenarios. And if you do not have that, if you're just doing revenue analytics because you think it would be cool to have data, you're looking at the data and you're thinking, oh God, what do I do here? So again, you have to know, what are you even doing this for? If you do have that, it might just be the most powerful thing you can have for your go-to-market.
Is there a case to do like a revenue analysis on closed loss deals as well?
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
For sure. Then, I mean, again, it's two sides of the same coin, right? So you also said the thing about cohorts and timeline. Now, if I am a new hire and I use whatever abilities I have to do the revenue analytics I can, I will look at all closed won deals so far, right? I'll break it up into potentially three sort of areas here. There's closed lost, there is deals that came in and then went to closed lost, and then there's closed won. That doesn't make sense because the first two are similar somewhat. What I'm looking for is I'm looking for closed lost. Why did we lose them, right? I'm looking for closed won. Why did we win them? And I'm looking for that interim there in between where
like
deals are just not progressing. No decision. Like I'm looking at why are we not progressing these deals? Because if we're not progressing them, then they should be closed lost. Or else they would be closed won, right? There's no in between. Either we're working towards the closed won or it's nothing. So I want to do the revenue analytics to understand that. So if I'm a new marketing hire, what's really important for me to know is why are we winning deals? Why are we losing deals? What makes us win deals? What makes us lose deals? If I can answer those questions, I am so well equipped to come up with a good go-to-marketing strategy because I'll know exactly, well, what makes us a winner. And then I can scrap all of what makes us lose, or we can improve what makes us lose. Either way, you're coming out with a winning hand because you understand what makes our customers or potential prospect tick with the solution that we have in place.
All right. So is this a very qualitative maneuver that you're doing here? It seems like you're talking about what makes us win. Is that the main outcome here? Or is it also, because the way I've been looking at it very much, and this is maybe just me showing my lack of knowledge and ignorance here, but the way I've been looking at it has been much more towards guiding our targeting and guiding our segmentation and all that stuff. So is it me that's using it wrong, or are there use cases in both sides here?
You're definitely not using it wrong. It depends on the scope of the project. In the cases where I have been using it, I have been working very closely with sales. So call me a junior chief revenue officer, right? I need to understand how these things, they work in tangent. You can definitely view it from a marketing perspective. Sparkforce, marketing agency, typically we request a revenue analytics to guide our targeting because at the end of the day, as an agency especially, it's really hard to have a great impact on sales. Our main goal is to bring in more demo requests, educate the target market, and therefore expanding the pipeline, right? So our scope is way different. And in that sense, you're absolutely doing it correctly because you're looking at the data significance that will drive targeting to become more efficient. Whereas what I'm looking at beyond that is not just targeting, but I also want to understand, okay, we're targeting the right people. What can I do to improve the deal efficiency to get more closed won? So basically improve the sales velocity Is there content that I need to have and front load beforehand? Is there something that I definitely shouldn't do? Because I believe that, again, content is king, but content is entirely dependent on who you target.
Yes.
So those two go together.
Yeah.
So if I know who to target, but I don't know what makes them closed won, I'm missing an aspect. And that's why I try and bring it together. This over here, when we come to the deals and the cycles and what makes us win them, it's far more granular and it's more time cumbersome. And you cannot do it if you do not have good data hygiene, for example, in your CRM.
Right. Cool. We are coming up on time for this episode. Is there any last words or like any final notice that you want to bring home for the audience?
I think no matter what B2B company you're working at, if you do not currently have a revenue analytics function, and even if you do, I would suggest, and it's not a paid plug or promo, any tool like Dream Data where you can sign up for.
Stack.
I was just about to say Hockey Stack, excuse me, sir, if they have a free trial.
Yes.
Any tool that you can put into place where you can have the cookie on your website, you can generate that data. I think it's also free to connect it to your CRM. You don't even have to buy it, right? I just want you to go in there. On the off chance that you do eventually buy it, you'll have all of that historic data to go through. You can also upload it later, right? Either way. But those tools are so powerful if you know how to use them to look at these things without needing a revenue analytics person. Like the tools, they do it for you. You have all the filters in place. You have the reports. You can show it to the C-suite. They're so powerful in guiding your go-to-market. The other way is to literally just hire revenue analytics, but then you need to understand the strategic elements of it, what questions to ask, which Dream Data, obviously, they've done their due diligence. They sort of know what are people looking for. You have those reports at the ready. I think that's what I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing. That was a very technical episode, and that was very, very cool. So now, for all the listeners out there, now you know how to do your own revenue analytics, and now you can improve your entire go-to-market based on already existing data.
Yes.
Magnus, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.